Imagine your most deeply held cultural beliefs about food, shattered by a single, unexpected taste.
In August of 1944, within the guarded confines of Camp Concordia, Kansas, German prisoner of war, overfilled Wibbel Helga Richter witnessed a sight that defied all logic. American guards were meticulously grilling entire ears of corn, still in their husks a reverence for a crop that, in her European experience, was overwhelmingly relegated to animal feed. Its human consumption, a grim indicator of desperate famine. Was this simply baffling American ignorance of proper cuisine, or something far more profound that would redefine her understanding of an entire civilization? This isn't merely a story about a meal. It's about the seismic clash of two worlds, revealed through the humble corn cob. Helga's initial disgust, echoed by her comrade Lyselman, stemmed from a deeply ingrained cultural perception. Yet, their American captivity had already begun to unravel Nazi propaganda, presenting clean facilities, adequate provisions, and respectful treatment that starkly contradicted narratives of enemy barbarity. This bizarre corn ceremony, however, seemed poised to confirm every culinary prejudice. But what if their understanding of this seemingly simple grain was fundamentally and historically flawed? Before we delve into this incredible culinary awakening and its lasting impact on post-war Germany, take a moment to show your support by hitting that like button and share your initial thoughts on cultural food surprises in the comments below. We're about to uncover how a perceived pig feed not only transformed a prisoner's plate, but ultimately an entire nation's worldview. In August 1944, Helga scoffed too. Lyselman, they're cooking animal fodder, grilling corn like a delicacy, not pig feed. Lysel's uneasy laughter underscored the dissonance of their American imprisonment, which starkly contradicted German propaganda about enemy brutality. Clean facilities, ample food, and respectful treatment hinted at an American prosperity previously unacknowledged. Yet this corn ceremony seemingly confirmed their assumptions about American culinary ignorance. In Germany, Helga continued, corn feeds livestock. Only the truly desperate ate it during severe shortages. And they've intend we ground it to hide the taste. Through the barracks window, they watched Sergeant Miller demonstrate grilling techniques to eager prisoner volunteers, turning the ears carefully, explaining in limited German as husks blackened and steam rose. Corporal Sarah Mitchell then invited them to the monthly cultural exchange dinner, themed American summer food traditions, noting attendance was voluntary. Helga, skeptical, asked if actual food would be served, or just more animal feed dressed up as human cuisine. Mitchell, her expression neutral, merely suggested, "You'll have to judge for yourself. Dinner is at 6 o'clock in the recreation hall." After Mitchell left, Lysel voiced her concern. "Should we go? I don't want to offend them. But I won't eat livestock fodder, to be polite." Helga decided, "We'll attend, if only to document more bizarre American customs for our repatriation report. Grilled corn for humans, our families won't believe it." This blend of duty and morbid curiosity led them to the evening event. That evening, 37 German female prisoners gathered in the transformed recreation hall. Grills blazed and the air filled with the aroma of roasting corn. Not the musty smell of fodder, but something distinctly sweeter, almost nutty. Sergeant Miller, addressing them in German, introduced sweet corn, picked this morning from Kansas farms, grilled with butter and salt. This is summer food in America, for family celebrations, community gatherings, simple pleasure. Helga and the others exchanged glances, confirming their shared belief. Americans celebrated by eating pig feed. This reinforced their views on European culinary sophistication versus American crudeness. However, Miller then removed a perfectly grilled ear, peeled back its charred husk to reveal golden, butter-glistening kernels, and an irresistible aroma that unexpectedly stirred Helga's hunger. "Who would like to try first?" Miller offered the steaming corn. The German women hesitated, torn between cultural prejudice and genuine curiosity. Helga, pushed forward by her peers as the ranking officer, approached the corn with a wariness one might show an unexploded bomb. "Just bite the kernels directly from the cob," Miller instructed, demonstrating. The butter and salt enhanced the natural sweetness. "Sweetness," Helga scoffed. "Corn isn't sweet. It's bland, starchy animal feed." Miller patiently clarified. That's field corn, what you feed livestock. This is sweet corn, a different variety of bread specifically for human consumption, developed by Americans for over a century. The distinction was lost on Helga, who knew only one type of corn. She accepted the hot, butter-dripping ear. For Germany, she muttered sarcastically, taking a bite with a look of martyrdom. The flavor explosion was utterly unexpected. Sweet, like summer fruit, yet buttery, smoky, and tender, not tough and starchy. The salt enhanced, rather than masked, its natural flavor. Helga chewed slowly, aware of every watchful eye. Her surprise was evident, prompting Lysel to step forward. Is it good? Lysel asked skeptically. It's not what I expected. It's actually pleasant. Pleasant? Lysel grabbed an ear, bitten with suspicion, and her eyes widened in shock. My God, this tastes nothing like the corn we fed to pigs. Within minutes, all 37 prisoners were savoring the grilled corn, the hall filled with sounds of enjoyment and confused chatter about this transformed animal feed. After a second ear, Helga approached Miller. How did you make livestock fodder taste like this? Miller replied, We didn't make it taste like anything. This is sweet corn's natural flavor when fresh, properly prepared, and respected as food. Americans have eaten corn this way since before the United States existed. Helga started, but in Germany double, quotes Miller gently interrupted. In Germany you only know field corn, for flour, meal, and feed. You've never experienced sweet corn because you've never developed the varieties or culinary traditions around it. The observations stung, prompting Helga to ponder how many other foods and possibilities Germany had dismissed without investigation. This corn revelation ignited weeks of discussion among prisoners about food, culture, and their entrenched assumptions. Helga was soon assigned to the camp garden, learning diverse crop varieties and agricultural methods emphasizing food quality. Corporal Peterson led Helga and other prisoners through the demonstration garden, explaining the 3 types of corn: popcorn, which Americans eat as a snack food, field corn for animal feed and flour, and sweet corn for direct human consumption. Snack food, Helga questioned. A corn variety specifically for snacking. Peterson corrected. We have dozens of varieties for different purposes. Americans take corn seriously. It's a native crop, developed for thousands of years. Your understanding of corn is just a small part of its story. Peterson detailed the differences. Field corn's tough, starchy kernels for meal. Sweet corn's higher sugar and tender texture for fresh eating. Popcorn's unique structure for popping. This represented an agricultural sophistication unknown in Germany, where corn was dismissed as inferior to wheat and potatoes. In Germany, Helga admitted, we considered corn a desperation crop, something Americans ate due to underdeveloped agriculture. Peterson, without judgment, countered. Yet corn is one of the most efficient crops ever developed. Higher yields than wheat, more versatile, better drought resistance. Americans chose corn not for lack of European crops, but because we recognized its potential. That, evening, on kitchen duty, Helga learned diverse American corn preparations, with Sergeant Williams, grilled, boiled, cut from the cob, sautéed with butter, and even baked into bread and muffins. Each revealed corn's versatility. My German grandmother initially refused corn. Williams shared, demonstrating how to cut kernels. Said it was pig food, but after trying it at a summer picnic, she made cornbread weekly and always grew sweet corn. It taught her not to judge food by prejudice. The story resonated with Helga Sergeant Williams. She ventured. How much else have Germans been wrong about? Williams responded, societies that thrive are willing to learn from others, rather than assuming they know everything. Over subsequent weeks, Helga became captivated by American corn culture. She learned about Native American agricultural traditions, developing dozens of varieties over millennia. American industrial success, she discovered, was partly built on corn's versatility: food, livestock, feed, raw material, even fuel. Corn isn't just a crop here, she explained to fellow prisoners. It's foundational to their entire system. We dismissed it as animal feed. They built a civilization around it. Are you saying we should have eaten more corn? Lysel lightly mocked. I'm saying, Helga thoughtfully replied, we shouldn't have assumed American food choices reflected ignorance, but rather sophisticated agricultural development. We simply didn't understand. September brought harvest season and an invitation for German prisoners to work on local Kansas farms, aiding American families and learning agricultural methods potentially useful for post-war German reconstruction. This is a significant opportunity, Sergeant Miller briefed. Kansas farmers need labor. You need practical education. The host families are German-American and specifically requested workers interested in corn cultivation. Along with 15 others, volunteered. 2 days later, she was on a truck to the Schmidt farm, 20 miles from camp. The Schmidt family, descendants of 1870s German immigrants, greeted them warmly. Mrs. Schmidt spoke German with an American accent, offering coffee, fresh cornbread, and pre-made beds, treating them as workers, not prisoners. My great-grandfather, Mrs. Schmidt explained during dinner, refused corn for his first year, but learned American corn was different and it became his favorite. A common story, it seems, Helga observed, accepting her third ear of grilled corn. Mr. Schmidt added, Europeans brought prejudices to America. Those who succeeded appreciated this land's offerings rather than clinging to old-world assumptions. Helga's agricultural education began the next morning. The Schmidt cornfields, hundreds of acres, were managed with mechanical precision. Mr. Schmidt explained the varieties. Field corn for feed, industrial uses, sweet corn for direct consumption, and popcorn. Each requires slightly different conditions, he noted. In Germany, Helga said, we plant whatever grows and use it. We lack specialized varieties. That's not luxury. It's efficiency. Mr. Schmidt, specialized varieties yield better. Field corn gives more starch. Sweet corn, better nutrition and taste. Grilling both serves our needs better. Helga learned crop, rotation, irrigation, mechanical equipment, and storage. You feed your people better than we feed ours, Helga said at lunch. Not better land, but better systems. Mrs. Schmidt replied. Perhaps we ask different questions. Not how to make people eat what's available, but how to develop crops people want to eat. We turned animal feed into a cuisine foundation. Exhausted but energized, Helga sat on the porch that evening, seeing American agricultural philosophy in the cornfields. Specialized crops, mechanical efficiency, quality alongside quantity, and respect for food development. Ready for tomorrow? Mr. Schmidt asked. Ready to learn more, Helga replied. Every day here challenges what I thought I knew. The 2-week farm placement transformed Helga's understanding of American agriculture and culture. On her final evening, the Schmidts hosted a traditional corn roast, inviting neighbors and providing a cultural experience. This is how Americans celebrate harvest, Mrs. Schmidt explained, preparing dozens of ears. Not fancy cuisine, but community food, shared pleasure, recognition of a good harvest. As the sun set, Helga watched families gather, children playing, adults sharing stories. It was similar to German celebrations, yet fundamentally different. Americans celebrated abundance, not merely surviving scarcity. Miss Richter, Mr. Schmidt called. Would you help explain to your fellow prisoners how to properly grill corn? You're quite expert. Surprised? Helga joined him. 2 weeks ago, a prisoner observed. You mocked this as pig food. Now you teach us. 2 weeks ago, Helga replied honestly. I was ignorant about corn agriculture and American food culture. I assumed that because Germans didn't eat sweet corn, it was inferior, rather than something we hadn't developed. As the evening progressed, skepticism turned to genuine appreciation. Even the most prejudiced admitted perfectly grilled sweet corn was delicious. Why didn't German agricultural programs develop varieties like this? Lysel asked, finishing her 4th ear. Because, Helga explained, we assumed corn was inferior to wheat and potatoes. We never invested in developing it. Americans started with different assumptions and got different results. This applied beyond corn. Helga had seen dozens of examples where German assumptions about American inferiority proved wrong. flush toilets, ice cream, automotive abundance, and sophisticated agriculture. When we returned to Germany, she quietly told the prisoners, "We need to tell the truth, not propaganda about American weakness, but an honest assessment of their strengths, including their corn." The comment drew laughs, but Helga was serious. Post-war Germany needed accurate information about what made America strong. Sometimes that meant discovering pig food was sophisticated agriculture. As the roast concluded, Mrs. Schmidt gave Helga a package. "Sweet corn seeds for your German garden after the war. Maybe you can introduce your family to what you've learned." Helga accepted the simple gift with unexpected emotion. Seeds, a symbol of direct experience over prejudice. "Thank you," she said simply. "I'll plant these, and remember that the sweetest lessons often come from tasting what we initially dismissed." October 1944 brought cooler weather and Helga's new kitchen assignment: teaching German prisoners American corn preparation. The role felt surreal. A former Wehrmacht officer teaching enemy prisoners to cook a vegetable. She democked. "Today we'll make cornbread," she announced to skeptical prisoners. A staple of American cuisine, demonstrating corn's transformation into baked goods. "Cornmeal bread?" asked Greta Schmidt, incredulous. "Sounds like desperation food. Real bread is wheat." Helga recognized her own past prejudice. "I thought the same. But American cornbread isn't inferior. It's different, with its own textures, flavors, and uses." Under Corporal Mitchell's supervision, she demonstrated. Stone-ground cornmeal. Flour, eggs, milk, butter, sugar, baking powder. The batter differed from German dough. "The secret is the hot cast-iron skillet," she explained, channeling Mrs. Schmidt's teaching. Crispy crust, moist interior. It's not trying to be wheat bread. It's deliciously unique. The baking aroma filled the kitchen, sweet, buttery, corn-fragrant. Unlike animal feed. When Helga removed the golden rounds, even skeptics leaned in. "Try it with butter and honey," she suggested. Opinion quickly shifted. Prisoners who'd vowed never to eat corn asked for seconds and recipes. "This changes everything about corn," Greta admitted. "If we'd known, maybe we'd have developed better varieties." "Exactly," Helga replied. "We dismissed corn without exploring its potential. Americans respected it, spent centuries developing it, and reaped agricultural abundance." Over following weeks, Helga's classes expanded to include succotash, mixed with beans, corn chowder, and corn pudding. Each recipe showcased the versatility of a crop Germans had written off for livestock. "You've become quite the corn evangelist," Sergeant Miller observed. 2 months ago, you called it animal feed. 2 months ago, I was ignorant, Helga admitted. Now I understand. Corn is only as good as the varieties you develop and the respect you show it. Americans excel at both. Acknowledging American strengths no longer diminished German identity. It recognized reality. American agricultural philosophy produced results Germany hadn't. December 1944 brought news of Germany's desperate ardent offensive and the recognition that the war was lost. For Helga, military defeat mirrored her personal transformation. Just as Germany misunderstood American strength, she misunderstood American food, equating sophistication with complexity, overlooking advanced society's perfection of simple things. Lieutenant Williams summoned her. U.S. Department of Agriculture civilians awaited. "These gentlemen," he explained, "are developing agricultural education for post-war Germany. They want to discuss your experiences with American corn cultivation." The 3-hour meeting covered varieties, techniques, and cultural attitudes. Officials took notes on German soil, climate, and infrastructure. The key, Dr. Harrison, lead consultant, stated, is German acceptance. We can introduce superior varieties, but if prejudice remains, the program fails. Prejudice exists, Helga confirmed. Germans associate corn with poverty, knowing only field corn, eating it only when desperate. How do we change that? Dr. Harrison asked. Helga considered her own journey. You let them taste it, she finally said. Not as a substitute, but as its own food. Show them sweet corn grilled with butter isn't inferior. It's different, and different isn't worse. The officials approved. Dr. Harrison made notes. Would you participate in our reconstruction program after the war, teaching German farmers about corn and overcoming cultural resistance? The offer surprised Helga. Months ago, she fought America. Now, they asked her to reshape German agriculture with captive-gained knowledge. Yes, she replied without hesitation. If Germany is to recover, we must learn from societies that succeeded where we failed. Sometimes those lessons come in unexpected forms, like animal feed becoming sophisticated agriculture. That evening, during Christmas preparations, Helga taught corn pudding. My mother would never believe this, Liesel commented. Helga, Wehrmacht officer, teaching American corn deserts. Your mother might not believe much about American captivity, Helga replied. Comfortable facilities. He and Netto Wars, food, respect, and yes, discovering delicious corn. They discussed post-war plans. Some prisoners would stay in America. Others, like Helga, would return with American knowledge. Do you think Germany will accept corn? Margaret asked. Not immediately, Helga admitted. But as we rebuild and need efficient, high-yield crops, they will recognize corn's advantages, as Americans did. March 1945 brought Germany's collapse. Repatriation began. American officials implemented an intensive agricultural education program for returning prisoners. Helga led classes on corn cultivation, teaching women techniques learned at the Schmidt farm. The most important lesson, she told students, isn't about corn, but approaching agriculture with openness. Germans assumed corn was inferior. Americans invested centuries in creating edible varieties, leading to agricultural abundance. Classes combined practical instruction with cultural education. Prisoners learned to identify varieties, understand growing conditions, and how corn could supplement German crops. In Germany, Helga explained, we farm as struggle. Americans partner with the land, developing varieties to maximize strength. Among her students was Greta, returning to her Hamburg farm to introduce sweet corn. My father won't believe me, she said. He'll think I'm brainwashed. Don't tell him, Helga advised. Showed him. Plant sweet corn, prepare it, and let him taste. That's what changed my mind. As her departure neared, Helga received an official offer from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, agricultural consultant in the American occupation zone, teaching crop diversification and modern techniques. It offered American wages, Munich housing, and influence on Reconstruction. You'd work for the occupiers, Liesel noted. Some Germans will see it as collaboration. Some Germans will see everything as collaboration, Helga countered. But Germany needs to learn from American success. Someone must bridge that gap. Teach that learning from former enemies isn't betrayal, it's practical wisdom. The 2-week voyage home involves strategizing. Mrs. Schmidt's sweet corn seeds, with growing instructions and recipes, were carefully packed. We're going home with enemy vegetables, Margaret observed. American corn seeds for German soil. It feels symbolic. It is symbolic, Helga agreed. Evidence that American strength came from agricultural sophistication we'd never developed, from investing in dismissed crops. The seeds represent everything we need to learn about approaching problems with open minds. Entering Hamburg Harbor, Helga saw a defeated Germany, but also opportunity. A society rebuilding, perhaps willing to reconsider old assumptions. The corn seeds symbolized transforming animal feed into abundance, through recognizing that different wasn't inferior and American wasn't wrong. September 1945, 6 months post-war. Helga stood in a Munich demonstration garden, addressing 50 skeptical German farmers, mostly women. This is not pig corn, she began, holding sweet corn seeds identical to familiar field corn. These are sweet corn seeds, bred for humans. Properly grown and prepared, Americans consider it a delicacy. Frau Richter, an elderly Bavarian farmer, interrupted. We know corn is animal feed. Why believe American propaganda? Helga expected this. Because I've tasted it, she replied. I was a Kansas POW, learned American methods from farm families. This isn't propaganda. It's practical, working knowledge. Months later, the garden challenged assumptions. Helga planted field corn, sweet corn, and popcorn. Farmers observed differences. Sweet corn plants are smaller, she explained, but yield higher sugar, more tender kernels. Harvest them earlier. People really eat this fresh? Frau Bieber, a farm widow, asked. Of the cub? Americans eat it grilled, boiled, or roasted. Helga confirmed. It's summer, celebration, food. Before you call it animal feed, try it. The August harvest was the test. Helga hosted a corn roast. Direct experience convinced them. My goodness, Frau Bieber exclaimed, tasting grilled sweet corn. This tastes nothing like pig corn. Because it isn't, Helga patiently explained. It's a different variety, for different purposes. Americans created varieties worth eating. The demonstration garden's success attracted occupation authorities and German officials. Within a year, Helga led a network of experimental farms across the American zone, teaching thousands about diversification and modern techniques. You've become influential, Lieutenant Colonel Matthews observed. The corn evangelist converting skeptics. I was a skeptic, Helga reminded him. I understand their resistance. The key is tasting the difference, not just being told. By 1947, sweet corn cultivation spread across Western Germany. Germans weren't yet eating it with American enthusiasm, but they stopped dismissing it as purely animal feed. Summer 1955. 10 years after the war, Helga, in her Munich agricultural consulting office, prepared for a meeting on Germany's agricultural future. Outside, market stalls sold fresh sweet corn alongside German vegetables. A sight unimaginable during her Wehrmacht service. Her assistant announced the Ministry of Agriculture delegation, who wanted to discuss expanding corn cultivation to East Germany if reunification occurred. Greeting the officials, some of whom were former skeptics from her early gardens, Helga reflected on her journey. 10 years ago, she began. I laughed at Americans for eating what I considered animal fodder. Today I ask you to consider corn a foundational crop for German reconstruction. That transformation represents what Germany needs to learn about open-minded problem-solving. She outlined proposals for expanded cultivation, field corn for livestock feed and industrial uses, sweet corn varieties for direct consumption, and even specialty varieties for specific applications. Each proposal, backed by a decade of German data, proved American methods viable. Initial resistance has largely disappeared, she stated, showing consumption growth statistics. Farmers once refusing American pig feed now recognize corn's advantages. Cultural prejudice overcome through direct experience. After the successful meeting, Helga walked through Munich's market, watching families buy corn for grilling, remembering her own shock, and smiling at changed perspectives. Still think it's animal feed? Mrs. Schmidt asked, visiting Germany. I think, Helga replied, embracing her mentor. It's whatever you develop it to be. Americans developed it into cuisine. Germans are learning to do the same. That evening, Helga prepared dinner. Sauerbraten with corn pudding, potato dumplings with grilled sweet corn, schnitzel with succotash, a fusion honoring tradition and embracing lessons. My mother still can't believe I cook with corn, Liesel mentioned. She thinks Americans brainwashed me. In a way, they did. Helga laughed. Brainwashed me out of unquestioned prejudices, forced me to taste what I dismissed, recognized my assumptions about American inferiority were wrong. Sharing the meal, they discussed broader lessons. Corn was one example of German prejudice meeting American reality. They encountered superior technology, generosity, social organization, challenging Wehrmacht propaganda. The corn was the perfect teacher, Helga tussed it. So simple, so wrong by our assumptions. yet delicious, forcing us to question other certainties. If wrong about corn, what else? The question shaped a decade of reconstruction. Germany was wrong about American weakness, its own victory's inevitability, its methods' superiority. 2 corn, Lysol, toasted. 2 questioning prejudices. 2 learning from former enemies, Margaret added. 2 sweet corn, Helga concluded, which proved dismissed animal feed was sophisticated agriculture. Weedy never developed a metaphor for what Germany needed to learn about the society that defeated us. As guests departed, Helga watched Munich's lights, grateful for the farm family who showed her that sweetest lessons come from tasting what you mocked. Corn was more than food. It was a bridge, a teacher, proof that strongest societies develop, perfect, and share what others dismiss or ignore. Biting into grilled sweet corn, Helga remembered Camp Concordia and thought, everything I believed about American food was wrong. What else was I wrong about? That question had rebuilt a nation.